Using properties of real numbers. In this example taken from the OpenStax textbook, we're asked to use the properties of real numbers to rewrite and simplify each expression and to state which properties apply. We'll start with a quick review of the properties of real numbers, starting with the commutative property. For addition, we know that A plus B is the same as B plus A. Thinking of numbers here, 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 3. The same is true for multiplication. Two numbers being multiplied, A and B, we can change that order to be B times A and still have the same thing. Similarly, for the associative property, if we have three things being added, grouping the second and third for addition first is the same as grouping the first and the second for addition first. And then for multiplication, multiplying three things, grouping the second and third or grouping the first and second have the same result. Then for the distributive property, if I have a number being multiplied by two terms being added, distribution means that A will be multiplied by the first term, and it'll also be multiplied by the second term. Then we have identity properties, which just say that if we add 0 to a number, we get the same number, or if we multiply a number by 1, we get the same number. For inverse properties, looking at addition, if I add a value and its opposite, then the result would be 0. Similarly, if I multiply a number by its reciprocal, the result is 1. So with this in mind, we'll turn our attention to example A, which has 3 times 6 plus 3 times 4. I notice that the 3 is being multiplied by both the 6 and the 4. That would be the same as writing the 3 outside with the 6 plus 4 inside parentheses. This is based on the distributive property. From here, we can simplify by adding the 6 plus 4. That would give us 10. And again, this was just by simplifying. Lastly, I have one more simplification that I can do, 3 times 4, which gives us 30. That 2 is just simplification. So here we have simplified as much as possible. Moving to B, I see three things being added and the first two being grouped together. So I know I can change that grouping from the first two to the last two using the associative property of addition. From here, we can do that calculation inside the parentheses, and adding a number and its opposite would just give us 0. And this is based on the inverse property of addition. Lastly, adding 5 and 0 would just give me 5. And this is based on the identity property of addition. We've again simplified as much as possible. For C, we have 6 minus parentheses 15 plus 9. And at first glance, this looks like we could use the associative property. However, that would have to be all addition, and since we have subtraction, I can't use the associative property. However, if I think of this as a -1 times that parentheses, I can multiply -1 times 15 to be -15, and -1 times 9 to be -9. And again, this was based on the distributive property. From here, I can simplify inside the parentheses to get -24. We were just adding here, so this is simplifying. One operation left, 6 plus -24, a -18. This is just further simplification and simplified as much as possible we can move on to D, where we had these fractions being multiplied, and I can see that the second and third are grouped together. And I also notice that this 4/7 and 7/4, when I multiply, those are reciprocals. So let's see if we can move things around. First, just switching the order of what's being multiplied inside the parentheses moves that 7/4 closer to the 4/7. And we can do this because of the commutative property of multiplication. From here, it would be nice to move those parentheses to the first two numbers being multiplied. Again, the only thing we changed was moving the parentheses, and moving the parentheses is the associative property of multiplication. And from here, I can see I have 4/7 times 7/4 inside the parentheses, where I would need to begin. 4/7 times 7/4 is just 1. This is based on the inverse property of multiplication. One last operation here, multiplying by 1, just gives me that number. And the property there is the identity property for multiplication. Lastly, for E, we have this 100 on the outside being multiplied by this parentheses that has addition of two numbers, which means I am distributing that 100 to be multiplied by both the first term and the second term inside parentheses. This is using the distributive property. From here, I can go ahead and do that multiplication. 100 times 0.75 is 75. 100 times negative 2.38 is negative 238. Here we are just simplifying, and we have one step left to simplify. We can do this addition. 75 plus negative 238 is a negative 163. This was also just simplifying.